Hey there, this is Cindy, your host, and thanks so much for joining us today. I'm so glad you're here, and I can't wait for you to hear today's episode. But just before we dig in, I wanted to share some ways that we can work together if you're looking to up-level your negotiation skills. I have everything from online to group to my signature one-on-one mastermind and VIP experiences available to help you better leverage your innate power to get more of what you want and deserve in life. If that sounds interesting, check out our website at artoffemininenegotiation.com. And now the reason you are here on to today's program, I am so happy to introduce you to Candia Raquel today. We're going to be talking about how to use sensuality to negotiate more effectively. So I can't wait. Welcome, Candia. Great to have you here.
Thank you for having me, Cindy. It's such an honor. I am very excited to have this conversation with you and share with your audience about how sensuality can improve your negotiation skills.
Yes, I am so excited about the conversation. It's something I feel passionately about, and I'm looking forward. I've got my pad and pen ready to take notes myself here. So, and for those of you who don't know Candia, she is a scientist, an artist, a master teacher, trainer, a body, mind, movement technologies expert, and she is the founder of Centro del Poder. And she's dedicated to helping workaholic women, and I'm sure there are many of you out there, so pay attention, dedicated to helping them feel sensually confident by moving with postural presence. So we're going to be talking about that and how you can use it to get more of what you deserve. So Candia, why don't we kickstart? Tell us, how did you come to this line of work? It's an interesting and unusual line of work.
Yeah, well, first through the experience of being a ballet dancer and a scientist and relating to my word and my body through duty, through pushing, through hustling, through struggling, and especially through enduring. And maybe many of you can relate to this kind of mindset that we have been taught as being the way to go and achieve. Whereas if you notice, the better negotiations and the greatest outcome are not always the one that took almost everything from you to achieve, but the ones that had like a natural organization and flow and pacing, which is an expression of awareness. And there's a pleasure to doing things the way that they lead to results. There's not much on this conversation, and that's why I am coming forth and introducing sensuality and pleasure as a way to approach everything that you're doing, not only say that sensuality like traditionally is considered like when you're on an intimate situation with your beloved, or you're having a sensual experience drinking a frothy frappuccino, but also involving sensuality to everything that you're doing in order for you to not only get your desired results that you deserve, but especially for enjoying the journey. So we are very often driven by desire, and what should, like, I want the house, I want the boat, the babe, the degree, the whatever. So it's like you are not alive until you get what you want. And it's to like, don't fall for immediate gratification and immediate pleasure. But an important thing is that if the effort that you're doing, it's not pleasurable, you're gonna abandon it. If the diet that you're following, it's not pleasurable, you're gonna drop it off. And if the way you are negotiating, it's not pleasurable for you, it's gonna be pushy and hard and maybe abrasive. It's not about like being comfortable or lazy, but being more aware of your experience at a physical flesh level and letting it inform you of the acuteness of your approaches. So that's the motivation that I have.
Oh my gosh, I can't wait to unpack some of that. There's so much there. And why don't we start, like, let's talk about the elephant in the room right out of the gate, because the word sensuality for a lot of women in particular has a lot of baggage. There's a lot of insecurity, I think, around it, given marketing and that. So why don't you just kickstart us with giving a description, like, what is sensuality and how do we deal with that baggage?
Okay, let's get started right into it. So sensuality is sensing pleasure through the senses, simply. Just like my iPhone is soft. It feels good
Yeah.
to sense with the touch this softness, or my coffee, it's yummy. A little bit cold, but it's yummy. So how does it? So I am sensing pleasure through my senses.
Yeah.
That is sensuality, and it's about pleasure in the way that we are working it in Centro de Poder, and that I am presenting it, and that I believe it's meaningful, and I am on a mission on sharing this view on sensuality that is quite a broad view. So I'm going to tell you now a little bit about what sensuality is not. Sensuality is not sexuality, though it could be, could be intertwined, and that's wonderful. But there can be sensuality without sexuality, or you can combine it. And we often associate sensuality only with intimate instances, or the frothy frappuccino, like the cherry with the chocolate. Yes, but that's only one area of sensuality with in a relation with another one, or in a relation with a fruit, or a sensual experience of having like very sexy French lingerie and no one knowing, but you feeling very comfortable. Yes, that is also sensuality, but there's more to that. And it goes beyond the capitalistic idea of having to have lingerie and spend money to be sensual, or having to be on detox retreat on Tulum, very high-end and expensive, so you can be sensually connected with nature. No, you can be sensually good. I mean, sensuality is our true essence. If you notice, when you feel healthy, like, okay, I'm doing good, my liver is okay, my low back is doing good, like actually there are no big problems in life, you can notice that the experience of health is pleasurable, and it's a soft underlying pleasure. I mean, your mere existence is pleasurable, and we often forget about that because of the noise that is going, especially if you are another achiever and if you're goal-oriented A+ personality. So sensuality can be like your own thermometer to notice how you're doing, how you're feeling, like a compass, even like a North Star, to see if you need to do like course correction. Am I really enjoying this, or I am thinking I should enjoy this? Maybe. And that's what about the thing that you must remember about sensuality is that the body never lies. Sensuality is your primal indicator of what's going on, and you can even think it as a pleasureometer. How much pleasure am I feeling here? And once you tapped into your sensuality, you will have an acute information also of what's going on, especially in challenging and interesting situations as negotiations. Like sometimes we are too much thinking on the other person or on the outcome, or what am I gonna say in response to what this person is saying, rather than sensing, like sensing and really being in the moment through this experience, through this sensual experience.
So beautiful. And there's so much there. I want to come back to some of those. One of the things that really struck me, though, when you were talking about sensuality and tapping into that pleasure, as women in particular, I find we tend to feel like we're not deserving of pleasure or something. I don't know. It's like we deprive ourselves of pleasure, like it's indulgence. So I always say the first and most important negotiation we have is with ourselves. So what advice would you have about women who are denying themselves pleasure and seeing it as too self-indulgent?
Yeah, we've been definitely educated on that, believing that pleasure is about indulgence and that you're lazy. And it's even worse if you are Mexican like me and live surrounded by a belief system of very strict Catholicism, that pleasure, it's not only indulgence, it's bad. And it's pleasure, it's the kind of bad that will take you to hell. So if you, and like, okay, then I don't want pleasure. And then it has the parallel belief of suffering and martyrdom and poverty as the gates to heaven.
Yes.
So in a way, it's a very goal-oriented mindset and belief system, but in a such detrimental way to the process of the achieving of that goal. And maybe we can be like stoic, and I am not gonna enjoy or stop to contemplate like the journey until I achieve it because I don't want to be distracted. But actually, the reframe is that pleasure is the other part of the circle of movement. So one thing that will drive you is desire, and the other part that will take you there is the pleasure in each step of the journey. So there's the pleasure of the realization. Say you want to get a new car and you have to negotiate with your boss to get a raise salary. And then you are very anxious to go to the meeting. And after you go to the meeting and you succeed, you're very anxious until you get your car. And as soon as you get what you wanted, then you may right there block pleasure. Why? Because you're not used to it. And then you go for the next desire and the next goal and the next goal, while on the way you're living as a hungry ghost. And at the end, life goes by. So it's a matter of deciding on examining your beliefs and the beliefs that you've been raised, and taking responsibility upon examination, like, okay, I grew up in Mexico and this is the environment, and my classmates from grammar school has this mindset. So now I'm clear, and I have to decide how am I gonna guide myself through this concept of pleasure and desire. So I tell you something very important to all that you're listening. Another word for pleasure is gratitude. So it's like, if I don't allow myself to have the pleasure of sipping my coffee, it is as if I am despising it. Not only my own work of arriving to having this coffee, but the work of the coffee cultivators and the ones that made this glass and everything. Because there's much said about gratitude, but more like a word or an Instagram phrase of gratitude. And pleasure is 100% about the flesh. That's why it's sensuality, sensing with the senses, not imagining and sensing with your aura atoms. No, it's about the flesh. So it's about the pleasure of writing that email that will get you an appointment to the negotiation. It's about really being alive in the whole spectrum, but especially in the aliveness spectrum, because we are very okay with suffering and no, my low back, and I am drowning with work and I have a lot of problems, and we don't even talk, not even to ourselves, about the good things and the pleasurable things that are the things that you should be grateful, but not should as an obligation, because I say, but because you have the opportunity of enjoying what brought you here. And this enjoyment, this pleasure, this sensing, it's the fuel that will propel your desire to get you to the next step. And being on this sensual pleasure satisfaction will sustain you to arrive like in a natural blooming way of the process towards the manifestation of your desire, instead of crawling to your desire like a hungry ghost because you are deprived by pleasure, and then you want to have all the pleasure when you get that. So so it's very, just to close this idea, it's very different how you show up to life, how you present yourself, how you share yourself, especially in a negotiation, when you are coming from a place of, I am okay, I am enjoying, and I am here, like taking the risk and listening to you, that if you come from the hungry ghost place of being deprived of pleasure, and I want to get from you, or I need to get this for myself. It's a completely different approach, and it sets the base and the context to a very different outcome. So I think that's a way to reframe sensuality and pleasure. Like you deserve pleasure because that's your birthright. And sensuality is how the fire of your aliveness is expressed.
So beautiful. And I love hungry ghost. That is what a perfect expression. I love that. And I want to circle back when you were talking about our belief systems and how that affects. And as you know, for me, the art of feminine negotiation really was born because we are so conditioned and we don't realize how much we're conditioned to define success in negotiations and in life generally based on a very masculine competitive model. And I think so both men and women, and I was guilty of this, to be honest, Candia, for many years, we end up seeing our feminine as a liability and we push it away and we show up with that more aggressive energy, feeling that that's the only way to succeed. So I'd love if you could speak to that a bit, because I know for me, I lost touch with my sensual. I used to love to dance and I felt at my best when I was in that mode. And when I used to show up early in my days in a hearing or a negotiation, coming from that more sensual, tapped into my feminine power, I was very effective. And boy, there was a high cost when I tapped into that masculine. It affected my personal relationships, my professional relationships, and it ultimately, I felt like I had lost myself. So I'd love if you could speak to that.
Yeah, well, first of all, I'm getting the goosebumps here because the work that you're doing through the art of feminine negotiation, it's groundbreaking. Like for me, it was such a big relief to say like, no, like I deserve the same and not even the same as setting a good measure of what I deserve or not deserve. No, I deserve what I want. And we have been conditioned to be people pleasers. We have been infected since childbirth through generations with the disease to please. Yes. And there's a reason for that. How long ago women couldn't vote? My grandmother, when she was born, she couldn't vote, nor my mom. So we are like in a historical moment that we have fought for equality, and we are restructuring what feminism, what feminine and being a woman really is, and not with a masculine or masculinized reference. Like now I am free, I am in business, I have to be a man. Well, that comes at the cost of like chopping away one arm of or your womb and your pleasure, the pleasure with what you're doing things. And if you go back 200 years ago, I mean, the wife better be pleasing to the husband that brought the food and maybe slaughtered the cow and brought the 500-kilo carcass when the wife was pregnant, about to give birth with other 3 little kids. I mean, the situation was very different.
Yes.
So now, so now we're on this great moment, and also on this great challenge of redefining what femininity and being a woman is. And not only societally, but singularly, like what does it mean for Cindy, for Candia, for you to be a woman? What does it mean for you, and what is your style of working, of being a woman and then working, of being a woman and then also being a mother and working, and being a businesswoman and negotiating and everything, and going through the different stages of the life as a woman and as a professional and as a negotiator. So we live in a fortunate moment when we have this challenge, because we can creatively define the meaning. And it has to do with claiming back what's yours and what's from all the women from all times and all generations. That is a sovereignty of the expression of our true nature. Like you're a woman and expressing it, and not putting it aside to fit into a corporate context of negotiation. That's another layer of your essence. Like you have your heart, and then you have a little bit of the lungs here, the pericardium, and then you have the sternum, and then the skin, and then you have your clothes. Like you're a woman, and the other layers are just layers. And having this clarity of who you are and where you're coming from will give you strength to stand on your true self, especially when you're facing adversity. That it's a negotiation skill that the other part will like try to, depending on the negotiations, but you have to come forth with all that you are. And that's what we call taking back your center of power, like taking back who you are. And then from this state of fulfillment, coming forth and offering creatively. So it's also a state of blooming, of pollinizing, instead of the state of hungry ghost and people pleasing and trying to fit in.
I love that you spoke to that individuality, because it's one of the challenges I often get about the art of feminine negotiation. A lot of women push back and say, well, what does it mean to be feminine? How can you define that? And it's like, there's no one way to be feminine, right? I mean, it's different for all of us, but when we ignore our feminine, when we push it away because we see it as a liability, then we got to recognize, raise our awareness about the power of our feminine. We all have masculine and feminine energy, and raise your awareness about bringing that feminine to the table. So let's dig in. I'd love you to talk about, like, how does sensual confidence improve negotiations?
Yeah, sensual confidence. It's a very important and hot topic because confidence is how you are perceived. And confidence is the state when you're ready to take the risk, to make the bet, to say what you mean, risking not being understood, not being liked, being criticized, losing the deal. But you take the risk and you put this expression of yourself in the table and let the other person make their decision. So it comes from a place of true knowing and sincerity, and this genuine offering, and also the respect of not trying to manipulate the other person. Like, I am offering you the response. Now it's up to you to tell me if you liked it, if you don't like it, if we shake hands and it's a done deal, or we pass this to another situation. And that's the essence of confidence. And sensual confidence is about rooting this confidence in your sensuality, in the experience of sensing pleasure through your senses. So it's not only the confidence that I have my degrees and I have my history of past success, because if you know, I'm getting the goosebumps again. When you're in a negotiation, it's all about that present moment. It's all about that moment. And what you have done before and the context, all that helps. But you have to be present. Like, decisions are made in that moment. One word, one expression, one position, everything affects. So it's another quality of sensuality. Maybe not so soft, but maybe more predatorial, like the jaguar in the jungle. That is not like a hungry ghost, but it's like on the pleasure of the hunt, or say a moose that are very elegant in the snow, and they are vegetarian, but they are relating with the environment in this state of being in the moment and sensing and having this experience of pleasure as the whole. It's not only your discursive mind and your calculus, but the strength of your presence coming forth as sensual confidence. And a way to understand this is like a boxing fight. Like, for example, here in Mexico, Canelo, boxer, Canelo Alvarez, Saul Alvarez is our superstar. He had many fights and broke records, and had only lost to Money Mayweather, because Mayweather is Mayweather. But like, come on. And he had a great track, like an impeccable track of success, and he lost the last fight, which we all Mexicans are very heartbroken. But what happens when you're a boxer and you step on the ring? You have no guarantees. You have no guarantees. If you see the best one, Muhammad Ali, Mike Tyson, they come to the ring and they know that that can be their last fight, even if they hadn't lose. And you need confidence for that. And not a confidence on your degrees or past successes, but a fleshly rooted confidence of sensuality. And this is like an example. And the invitation, like we are already on this, is to start practicing sensual confidence, maybe in contexts that are not such a high stake, but
Yes.
maybe just how does it feel to go to a supermarket and stand in front of the cashier just as you are, like, and look at the person like just as you are, like with your sensual confidence.
Nice.
And go to a family dinner, that those family dinners sometimes get like harder than the worst negotiation or ring fight, because you need your and like how those sensual presence, and you will notice that on the beginning you will default into collapse or into smallness. No, I don't want to bother you, I don't want to disturb, like I don't want to make you uncomfortable. I prefer to give in for myself and please you and fall into the disease to please, so you don't like abandon me, stop loving me, stare at me judgingly like the aunt, like it was 200 years ago. So that's an opportunity to root sensually into confidence and face the situation and the person from this place that is an authentic place of your splendor, of the best for you coming forth.
Oh, so good. I love that. That then such a practical, simple place to start. And I must say, I love your imagery. Like Candia, oh my goodness, it's just so beautiful. And the fact that you brought boxing up melts my heart, because my dad loved boxing. I grew up watching Muhammad Ali and Joe Frazier and all of the boxing, right? So you speak to my heart on that. And I'd love when you, as you were speaking, it really struck me too, that when you're in that place of sort of feminine power and trusting in your sensuality and leaning into being so fully present. Well, I'd love your thoughts on how that opens up our intuition as well and allows us to tap in at a deeper level to our intuition, which is a big part of the art of feminine negotiation, is bringing that empathy and intuition and trust building to the table. What are your thoughts on the tie between that sensual confidence and intuition?
Yeah, great. Sensual confidence, like in the context of, for example, boxing, can be perceived or experienced as something active, as something that goes out, because that's like a more familiar expression of confidence. Whereas intuition, we relate that to be like more receptive, more listening to the other, turning to the nuances of the context and listening to the subtleties. And that, in fact, requires more confidence. Like,
I love this.
You really need to be like rooted in yourself to say, not to react aggressively to a person that is being not nice in a negotiation. Like it takes to have like a really strong core of confidence, sensuality, and femininity to listening, and not indulge into relating on the tone that the other sets. So it's like, I am feeling what's going on and I'm gonna stay quiet. And I've done that exercise of staying quiet, and damn, it's hard. Like I counted 3 seconds of looking at the other person, and 1 and 2, I hope. And that's a feminine quality. Like you cannot rush childbirth. You cannot rush the stages. I mean, many wished like
That's so true. That is so good. Oh my gosh, I love your approach to this. We're so in line.
Yeah, it's the truth, and we know. I don't have babies so far, but we know about this because we have it in our flesh. We can relate to it, and that's a strength. I mean, we're talking about the strength, the life-giving strength that is femininity. So
beautiful.
It can be considered as passive of intuition, but it's the other spectrum of nature's way and nature's force. And it has to do with this openness and also the willingness to be seen as you are and what's going on. And the biggest strength of this intuition and feminine strengths is that it sets the tone and the context for the whole negotiation. In the same way that this is like a very far-fetched example, but for example, sensuality can set the context for a fulfilling sexual experience rather than just sexuality without sensuality around and in between. So that's a feminine ability to set the context, and it's like placing the house or our feminine things. Like, if you want to negotiate with me, it's going to be on this context, and this is what is allowed, and I am not going to respond to that. And intuition, I have the feeling, the sense that is pretty much contextual, like non-localized. It's a bone marrow certainty that you don't know what you know, why you know, but you just know it. And you can even intuitively anticipate. And intuition, it's something from the mysterious realm of the flesh and the body. Because so you have this intuition, and then the approach of the negotiation, like you feel it and you know it, and then your body gets another tone, your voice and your pace and your discourse gets another tone that sets another context that may lead in a soft way the outcome and the position of the other person. It can also be like, if you want it can be aggressive, like, I am setting this context, and now you have to choose which position are you going to take. And then the other part will reveal information. But I like when you allow intuition to guide you, because then you're taken by something that is you, that is in you. It doesn't mean that it comes from somewhere else. It's also you, but it doesn't refer to the discursive thinking that we've trained so much, and that is not always so good for our body, or not even for negotiation. Because negotiation, it's about relating, and that's our feminine strength. The masculine is more about directing and impose. It's about very important and necessary, like we go 200 years back, like for the men to go hunt and bring the food for the 8 kids, no? Like, the guy better have that. But even then, men also need to use their feminine side and their intuition, because there are fishers that they just know where the fishes are in the lake, and they go right there. They go right there. So the thing is to acknowledge the gifts that we have as women, that are gifts that we have born with, and not despise them, because those are gifts that we didn't fought for them, earn them, and made a degree or achieve them. No, those are things that we have because as women, we actually need them. So the thing is, like, to use intuition as more than your toolbox. Use it as part of your certainty and as part of the means that you have to drive your intention to fruition. Considering your intention to fruition is an intention that also involves the well-being of the other part in the negotiation, because we as women tend to not only, the problem is that we forget to feed ourselves, and we serve the dinner to everyone and we didn't have food. So that's already covered, like the other person, probably it's going to be included in your negotiation plans. So it's this reframe of examining and questioning endurance, the approach of endurance, as if it was better and more efficient. And I just want to invite all of you, all of us, to consider pleasure as something that you already have, and that is an expression of gratitude. And that will sustain you to fulfill your next desire and complete these are circles of energy that keep you going in life and enjoying the process moment by moment.
These are such beautiful insights, Candia. And it's interesting. I'm sure people will look at the title of this episode and go sensuality and negotiation and see them as inconsistent. But everything you're talking about is foundational to effective negotiation. Like, at its core, to be an effective negotiator, they're so incredibly connected. It's beautiful. So if we can shift to some practical, I'd love if you could share with our listeners, what are some practical tools that they can use to tap into their sensuality, to get, if they've lost connection, what are some things they can do to rediscover that sensual connection for themselves?
Yeah, there are three key aspects of sensuality, three keys that unlock sensuality. The first one is posture. The second one is presence. And the third one is pleasure, the 3P. So posture refers to how your body is doing. And it's evident. How's my posture? It's collapsed. And then the effect of this ripples in the presence, like what did you all felt? And now notice this. I'm back to my posture of my body, and my presence and how I am being seen is different. Like this is more like I'm talking to you and I am here for you fully. Whereas this, it's like I am collapsed, my lungs are squished, and it looks, I am very interested in what we're talking, but it doesn't look like I lost my presence.
So good.
So you have posture and presence. And the last one is pleasure. Use pleasure as a pleasureometer, like a thermometer. To notice how much pleasure are you having in the moment. For example, my low back feels good, my shoulders, my cheekbones, like I can feel pleasure in my body. And that will tell you how things are going with you and with the environment. Because if you get collapsed, or if you're actually getting uncomfortable in the negotiation, it means that something is going sideways and you will lose the sense of pleasure. And maybe you will start to feel discomfort or even pain. Like we have very emotional muscles, like the piriformis that cinches the sciatica or the neck muscles. Like you get emotionally stressed and these areas of your body start to hurt. So instead of pleasure, you fall into pain. Instead of presence, you fall into distraction. And instead of posture, you fall into collapse. So you need these three things for sensuality to happen. That is, again, posture, your presence, and the pleasure. And the practical tool to get this together is to be your true height. I mean, I am 168 centimeters tall. I don't know how much that is in US measurement, but being on your true height will set the base for sensuality. So often we want to make the other person feel comfortable, no matter how uncomfortable we can be. And that is a disease to please. And that looks like this. Look. Now I am 1 centimeter less. I am making myself smaller than what I am truly. Notice the difference. Like here I am 168. This is 1 centimeter less. This is half centimeter less. This is me. This is my true height. And then goes the other way around. The being pretentious or being like uptight. So here I am not 68. I am trying to be taller. And this another energy, like I am present, like I want you to acknowledge that I am present. And these tend to be more masculinizing, like challenging, like I am more than you, or I am important and you're not gonna disrespect me or whatever. And any of those are equally taking you far from who you are, essentially. So sets the tone, this sensual tool sets the tone for negotiating from a level not of equality. We are not the same, men and women, but we are worth the same. So the thing is to not try to be like the other, or the other try to be like you are, or set on your terms, or I should sacrifice everything to comply with their terms. No, it's about the relation and like an infinite symbol of synergy, in my opinion. And that can only happen when you show up on your true height. Like I am not less than you and I am not more than you. I'm the same of you. And that will set an image for the other part to also like, no, if you're like, I don't know, your price is too high, like come on, like place your feet on the earth, or the other person is collapsing, it makes a hit like, okay, what did I say? Like, I need to also see the impact of my interaction. So in short, it's like practice being on your true height, on like, if you don't remember your height, go measure yourself and notice if you shrink when you're with your uncomfortable and gossipy aunt in the family dinner. And or notice if you go like this when you see your aunt, whatever your response, and rest in your truth, but in your flesh, physical truth. And when you're in your true height, you will feel more freedom to move, and you will feel your space, like, okay, this is me, that is you, and we're dealing this, and I am not collapsing. So this is like the sensuality, like easy keys, like be on your true height, and then you will know through your posture, your presence, and your pleasure what's going on in you and what's going on the other person. And the idea, the goal is that you have a good time on the negotiation, even if it's a challenging negotiation, well, like the jaguar in the jungle or the very elegant moose on the snow, like you are on your thing, you're alive on your true height, and that's sensuality.
Wow. So powerful. Like, oh my gosh. And I just want to put a pin for our listeners in that. Remember 3 Ps, such a simple model for you to be able to follow, right? That posture, so important, because as women in particular, we are very conditioned to make ourselves smaller, to shrink, to be lesser version. You know, young boys in kindergarten get their social status by making themselves larger than life, whereas young girls in kindergarten get shunned. So we tend to make ourselves smaller. So having that posture to step into the fullness of who you are, I think that's such beautiful advice. So you've got that posture and that presence. Just be there. Allow yourself to be fully engaged and fully present and trusting in your intuition, feeling the fullness of your feminine power, and that pleasure piece, I think, so important for us as well, including, and I love that you pointed out, Candia, that because the where, one of my models in negotiation, I call it the 5 W's, and it's who, what, where, when, why. So, you know, decide who you want to be. So that is that posture. Who do I show up as, right? Being at my exact height, not too big, you know, not bigger than my britches, not too small, but at my authentic self. But also the where. We so often don't think about. Conduct your negotiations in a place where you feel comfortable. Even if it's on a Zoom call, I often say, find somewhere in your home that makes you feel good, that environment. So really be tapped in to be able to touch on those pleasure points to make sure you're comfortable. And having been a lawyer for 30 years, I've seen, you know, some people will in negotiations purposely give uncomfortable chairs to the other party. So really, really powerful insights that you've shared. So beautiful. And I can't believe how quick our time is going. I'm going to have to get you back for a follow-up to this. But I normally love to end by asking, what is one of the greatest mindset shifts that you've ever had in your life? Doesn't have to be on this issue. It can be anything. One of those kind of aha moments when you look at something differently and it shifts everything for you.
I think the greatest shift that happened to me lately was the shift from enduring to looking for pleasure. And I'm gonna be sincere here. I have a knee fracture.
Oh my gosh. Yes. Wow.
Yeah, I was carrying a 30-kilo pot, and a guy just crossed, and I shifted, and my knee cracked like celery, like, and I knew right there the sound that something was wrong. And what did I do? Even though that I am talking about sensuality and pleasure since 1 year ago, more or less, in the middle of the pandemic, still on that extreme situation and unexpected of meniscus fracture, my old scientific and ballet dancing conditioning of you have to endure, and it doesn't matter if your toenail fall and your feet is bleeding, you have to dance and no one has to notice because you're here for the clap, and actually you don't matter. The only thing that matters is the outcome, and you want to get this done and like be very heroic.
Yeah.
And this was crushing because I noticed how I defaulted into my endurance pattern.
Yeah.
And I mean, that was good for the first 15 minutes after this incident.
Yeah.
That I had, there was no one around. I had to crawl to to a place to grab
Wow.
my cell phone, and that's what endurance is for
Yeah.
those 15 minutes.
Yeah.
But for the rest of the 4 weeks that I've been going on rehab and etc., I had to question myself: do I really need to do this way?
Yeah.
Is pushing and punishing and hyper criticizing myself gonna really take me to a faster recovery and in a better way? And then I got the test, like, yes, you're talking about pleasure, you're talking about sensuality and feminine way, and look at yourself, look how you're treating yourself mentally. And then I get the goosebumps again, and then I had to make the reframe and like really putting it to practice, like, okay, I'm gonna listen to myself and I'm gonna do what's best for me, not for the applause, not for my family members to say, no, such a hero, she's sacrificing and not complaining. And I noticed that this way of sensing your body through challenges and looking for how to arrange yourself towards pleasure, like finding the place on your home that you feel comfortable to make the negotiation, it's the most effective way to get the better results. Why? Because I diminished my cortisol levels. I am not gaining weight, even that I am not doing exercise. And I am relating to the changing environment, which is called adaptability by Darwin. So actually, pleasure, it's the way, not only for an intimate situation or a coffee with your friends, but pleasure, it's important, especially for the hard moments that you just have to go through. Pleasure is the way you go through that moments, because your body will never lie to you. Your body will never lie to you. And that's the way you can know if the person you're negotiating with is lying, because of the body is transparent. So through pleasure, you will know what's best for your body, for recovery, for the negotiation, for making your next career step, for any challenge that you face. It's not the hard way, like forget about enduring, go for pleasure.
Yeah. So beautiful. Oh my gosh, such a powerful finish too. I love everything about that philosophy. You're so articulate as well. Such beautiful imagery, that great combination of sort of concrete, practical information, but it's almost poetry the way that you share it as well. So thank you so much, Candia, for being with us and sharing these insights. Really a pleasure to have you here.
This is such a pleasure and an honor for me, Cindy. Thank you so much.
And again, this is a kind of episode I really invite you, everybody out there, to share the episode, but also re-listen to it yourself. Catch all those little beautiful nuggets and subtleties so you can really own it in your body, because we have been so conditioned to resist that piece of ourselves. And even as Candia was talking, I was opening myself up more and more to recognizing how important it is to really ground yourself in it from a place of pleasure when you show up, and how that can make you a more powerful negotiator, whether with your kids, with your intimate partner, in business deals, at those family gatherings that Candia was speaking about so beautifully. So such great advice. And for our listeners out there, if you want to learn more about Candia and her work, definitely check out her website. We'll put it in the show notes as well. I'm probably bastardizing this, but Centro de Poder, CENTRODEPODER.com. And we'll make sure to put that in the show notes for you. And I'm sure you have just, if you've been listening at all, you had to have taken away incredible value from this episode. Make sure to subscribe to the podcast if you haven't done that already. Share it with anyone that you think can get some value from the message, both male and female. I mean, we've talked about that masculine and feminine energy, and Candia so beautifully. Well, we talked a lot about the issues that face women. We've also talked about the fact that both men and women have that masculine and feminine energy, and men are well served tapping into that feminine energy as well, using that sensuality, tapping into those 3 Ps to be able to be more effective negotiators, not having to ram through an agenda, like Mike Tyson, to use that boxing analogy. So who couldn't get benefit from this? So please do share the episode. Make sure to join our Women on Purpose community. If you haven't done that yet in Facebook, just go to Facebook groups and look for Women on Purpose community. And that is a wrap for this episode. So until next time, go forth and negotiate your best life on your terms so you can stop missing out and start getting more of what you deserve and want, both from the boardroom to the bedroom. Until next time, take care.